So for this morning here, we're gonna jump right into it. I just want to take a moment. If you gentlemen, you'll stand as I'll call your name. We have Chuck Jordan in the back here. Man, yep. The man in the back. He's going to be speaking to you today. He is security here at Heartland Worship. He's going to be giving a section of the speech for you. We have Fletcher Schrock here. He's going to be speaking first off the bat for you. And then we also had Jared Morgan. He's going to be speaking with you. And the fourth person, there's only four this morning. I am Ryan Kahn, and I'll be speaking with you some this morning. Each man will give a quick personal introduction as they stand up. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you'll come on up.
Well, I'm Fletcher Schrock. I'm an attorney with McMurray and Livingston here in Paducah. I do criminal law and personal injury, and appreciate the opportunity to kind of open this meeting this morning to share with you briefly my thoughts on the legal aspects of church security. I mean, you wouldn't be here today if you didn't think that church security was important. And I think we can all agree that if we're going to be about the work of church security, we need to do it with care. We need to meet the standard of care. So let me throw out a hypothetical to you this morning. I facilitate a divorce care class here at Heartland. We meet on Wednesday nights. Every Wednesday night, any given Wednesday night, there's going to be about 10 people there. Mostly women. Some of those women have DVOs against their husbands and domestic violence orders. And so that means that they've got husbands who have committed violence against them in the past, or they have husbands who have threatened violence against them in the past. So assume that on one of these Wednesday nights, one of these irate husbands comes onto campus here and finds the divorce care class, pulls his wife out of the divorce care class into the hallway, and begins to get into a heated argument. Security is called. By the time the security person rounds the corner at the end of the hallway, he sees at the opposite end of the hallway the husband in an altercation with his wife. And he sees the husband haul off and punch his wife in the face, fracturing her jaw and causing her to fall onto the floor of the hallway. Now, the security guard immediately yells out, "Stop." And then as he yells that out, the husband pulls out of his pocket a black object and points it at his wife. The security guard has to react, and so the security guard pulls out a concealed carry weapon, aims and fires and kills the husband. And it's later determined that the black object was a cell phone. That scenario, I submit, is not that far-fetched. That could happen. And so what I want us to think about is, in a scenario like that, what would be the legal ramifications? Well, you're thinking of two things. You're thinking of a criminal liability, and you're thinking of a civil liability. Now, from a criminal liability standpoint, if I were to analyze that situation and consider what are the chances that a Commonwealth attorney would actually prosecute that, I would have to say that it's unlikely under that scenario. And the reason is there is a defense in Kentucky called justification, and we have a statute that says that if that one has the ability to use deadly force to prevent deadly force or serious physical injury to be perpetrated on another person. So in that scenario, the analysis is focused on what the security guard believed. So it's viewed from the standpoint of the shooter, the security guard. And so in that situation, I believe he would have a fairly good defense. Nobody wants to be in that situation where they have to make a defense. But from a criminal standpoint, I think we're okay. The real issue is the civil liability, and that is where most of your concerns will be. And most of your bad incidents and most of the situations that turn bad, the civil liability is your greater concern. So who could sue who in this scenario? Well, the lady who got her jaw broken, the member of the divorce care class, could sue the security guard and could sue the church under negligence grounds, principles of negligence. Also, the deceased husband, his estate could sue the security guard and the church for wrongful death. Also on principles of negligence. So let's take a look at the concept of negligence. We all understand basically what negligence is. We just have this common definition in our mind of what, when someone's negligent. Let's look at the legal definition. There are 4 elements of negligence: duty, breach of duty, causation, and injury. Duty, breach of duty, causation, and injury. Those are the 4 elements. So for a plaintiff to sue a defendant and recover money damages, the plaintiff has to prove that the defendant owed a duty to the plaintiff, that the defendant breached that duty, that the breach was a substantial factor in causing the injury. If a plaintiff can prove those 4 things, then the plaintiff can collect money damages to the extent that they've been harmed. So as you can see, the focus needs to be on the first questions that are asked in the negligence analysis. The first questions are, do you owe a duty? If so, what's that duty? Did you breach it? In this particular case involving a church, the question is, does the church owe a duty to those individuals? And I submit to you that a church owes at least 2 duties. The first duty is, as a possessor of land, inviting people onto the land, the church owes a duty to protect the invitees from any foreseeable harm. Key phrase, foreseeable harm. But you would have to have your head in the sand if you didn't believe that in this day and age that we're living in, it is foreseeable that someone could come on church property and create havoc, do violent deeds. So it is a foreseeable harm. Now, if we were back in 1940, I don't know that we'd have that. But today, we live in a different world. So it is a foreseeable harm that could happen. Now, the second duty is closely associated with the first. The second duty is that knowing that you have a duty to protect, you need to be you need to exercise ordinary care in carrying out that duty to protect. The key phrase there is the exercise of ordinary care. When you get into a jury trial, the jury will be given instructions. The jury will be given instructions on what is ordinary care. and they'll be told this, that in this particular case, ordinary care is that degree of skill and care that a reasonably prudent church, an ordinarily prudent church, would take under the same or similar circumstances. That degree of skill and care that an ordinarily prudent church would take under the same or similar circumstances. So think about that. If you're in a tight spot like this, and someone sues you, it goes to trial, the issue will be whether you were exercising ordinary care. And so you're going to be measured against what other prudent churches, ordinarily prudent churches, are doing. So I hope you can see how significant this is that you're doing today. This networking that you're doing, this study of common practices and best practices, I believe is critical. And networking like this will help you bring your security team, the conduct of your security team, within the standard of care. And that's what you're trying to achieve. So as you network, and as in the months and years to come, as you continue to try to see what other churches are doing and their security teams, and you try to pick up good practices, I just encourage you to focus on 4 areas. Now, there are a lot of things to focus on, but from my standpoint, from a legal standpoint, I see the 4 areas as hiring, retention, supervision, and training. Hiring, retention, supervision, and training. The reason I single those out is because if you're in a tight spot and something bad happens and you get sued, the complaint will contain a paragraph that is going to say, I'll guarantee you, is going to say that you were negligent in hiring, retention, supervision, and training of the security team. We just simply have to be sure we're doing a good job at the front end, vetting these people that come on the team to be sure that they're qualified. We need to be doing the background checks. We need to be checking references, doing what needs to be done to be sure that these people are qualified, that they've had the initial training and qualified to get on the team. And once on the team, it just doesn't end there. You need to monitor and supervise to be sure that you don't get in a situation where something bad happens and come to find out that this person that messed up had messed up a couple other times and you didn't do anything about it. You should have been on notice that they really weren't capable of doing this job. And so you retain them anyway. That's negligent retention. So we need to monitor and supervise. And then finally, training, you cannot train too much. You need to continue to train, stay current, and do all you can to be sure that your team is skilled and continues to be highly qualified. So I just encourage you to continue on with this work you're doing. The Bible says that as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. I believe that that's true for churches as well. As iron sharpens iron, one church sharpens another. So continue to stay on task. And I just pray God's blessings on your work here today and in the future. Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Fletcher. Folks, what we'll do is we're going to have if you look at your outlines, there's going to be an overall question form at the end. That way we can move through all the material as quickly as possible. So one of the things I want to talk to you about this morning, and I'll be turning to the PowerPoint in just a minute, is why the need? Why do we have a need for a church network that shares the information about harms, scams, potential issues coming to the region or the area? I think Fletcher is able to prescribe a very specific scenario for us that is all too realistic in today's society. But there's going to be a lot of other things here that we're going to see in just a minute. One of the things that we have is we are called and we are commanded to be good stewards for the Lord. And one of the things is being good stewards is not only taking care of the resources that God has blessed us with, but it's taking care of the sheep in the flock, of the brothers and sisters that we worship with. And so by being good stewards, we're going to keep each other safe, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And that is something that we're commanded to do throughout the Scriptures. Something that I also want to encourage everyone to think about in that 1 Corinthians 14, I believe it's verse 42 at the bottom of the section there, we are commanded to maintain orderly worship as well. All right. And that's something that is very important. If there are things that are causing disruptions, there are things that are blocking worshipers from connecting with God, if there are things that are happening inside your buildings and inside your congregations that are interrupting your churches, you are violating a command of God. And that's really important for us. And that's one of the largest platforms that I have based everything on. So I'm going to give you a quick background of who I am, where I come from, what my mentality is. I'm a guy from all over. I hope I'm not going to taint your opinion of me, but I'm a Yankee. I'm originally from Michigan, from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was educated at Harding University. If you've not heard of it, it's a private Christian university in Arkansas. I received a 4-year bachelor's degree in criminal justice, heavy emphasis on constitutional law down there. And then I was recently hired in Paducah, well, not recently, about 9.5 years now of law enforcement experience, and that is ongoing. So I come from that background. One of the things that I do, and one of my personal things that I stipulate, is that I just have to constantly seek improvement for myself and for others around me. And the niche that I have found is teaching and training people how to be safer. And so that's where I come from, and that's who I'm here, and I do all those things with God on the forefront. So doing that, we have to find a means to accomplish the task for making ourselves safer. And the main purpose for this meeting today is to give you information up front. Okay, there is a need for this, and that we have a task to maintain that orderly worship, to maintain that stewardship of protecting ourselves. There's a difference between turning the other cheek in sight of persecution and then having someone maliciously come in for maybe mental illness issues, domestic violence spillover, and seeking to destroy and tear down. And hopefully we can, if you research in the Bible, and there's plenty of scriptures, we have a duty in Ezekiel where if we see harm or blood to befall a brother and we do nothing to act, that blood is on our own hands. So that's another alarming verse for me, where if I see my brother in danger and I do nothing, that's counted against me. So again, I'm going to emphasize these things, that we have love for one another, and that's going to be the main reason we're acting. So we need a means to accomplish the task, and that's why we're here today. And Chuck Jordan's going to stand up later and describe a little bit more of the details of the means that we're going to talk about today. But hopefully I'm going to open your eyes here in just the next few minutes. One of the things that I want to do is I want to take away the mentality that it can't happen here. That's my reason for speaking today, because it can happen here. And I want to support this, unfortunately, to you through some statistics and things that have happened. There is a need in the churches of the United States, there is across the world, but we're going to affect what we can locally. We no longer have the mindset, we cannot afford the mindset of it couldn't happen here. Oh, this is Little Paducah, Kentucky, this is Little McCracken County, Marshall County, this is just Kevel. Wherever we are from the region around here, we can't afford that mentality. It's happening everywhere. Crimes against churches and crimes against their people and their property. And again, we're called to be good stewards. I'm going to show you some statistics here. These statistics on the first page here are from Carl Chin. If you've never heard of Carl Chin, he is the leader next to the FBI in producing church statistics for crimes. And these are statistics that will be tracking from 1999 all the way to June of this year. So He's been on the ball for updating them. Overall, and I'm going to bring the big ones out right in the very beginning. Overall, there have been 1,281 deadly force incidents. That is incidences where deadly force has been used, whether criminally or justified. People have died at churches or on their property. 1,003 of those have known causes, like we know it was a robbery, we know it was gang-related, we know it was a domestic violence spillover. It was about 280 approximately that they haven't determined the exact cause, and that's usually reporting issues. 169 of those were known to be domestic violence spillovers. So what was the first example, the only example that Fletcher brought you this morning? Domestic violence spillover. That is huge. That is on the forefront of things that are happening at churches. We are a hospital for sinners. We are not a showcase for saints. That's a cliche that I love. And with sinners comes sin. We have to prepare for that. There were 132 that were personal conflict. I don't like the color of your socks. Let's get in a fight. And those resulted in a deadly force incident. Okay? 255 were robberies. Are you protecting yourself? Are you thinking about the fact that you have this huge contribution walking out the parking lot on Sunday morning and somebody else may want that money? That Monday through Friday, while you're sitting in your offices and there may be 2 secretaries and the preacher working on a lesson, that somebody may come into your building and take your stuff, and it may turn into something where 255 people have been killed in churches in America. Now these 3 reasons right here, 55%, make up 55% of the reasons people die in churches. I also forgot to caveat that these deadly force incidents do not include accidents. People falling off a ladder, having a heart attack, medical issues, a car crash on property. These are caused by people in conflict. These 3 right here you might want to pay attention to because those are the ones that you need to very much, top 3 category help. 92 were gang related. It's very interesting, but think about this. No matter how tough you think you are, everybody's going to church with their mama on Christmas, right? And on Mother's Day. So even the biggest, baddest gangbangers or whoever they think they are, they're going to be sitting with mama on Mother's Day and Christmas. And when they see the guy that's a rival across from them, that's going to cause some problems. Drug-related cases. Yeah, that's a good place to do a drug deal right in the middle of a parking lot, crowded full of cars where you can blend in. 58 were religious bias. Now that's one most people jump to. We're going to be persecuted. People are going to murder us because of what we believe in. So 58 of the 1,281 were religious bias. It's a fairly small percentage. And just to let you know, I didn't categorize them. Carl Chin did this. But the number 1 religious bias category is Baptists. And again, I didn't categorize it, but that lumps all Baptists into one category labeled Baptists. The next would be Jewish and then Catholic underneath that are your top 3. But what's really nice is the pages that he lists out. It's about a page and a half of types of denominations that you may have. And out of the page and a half listed, and that goes from one spotlight church that doesn't exist anywhere in the United States to, again, Baptist and Catholic churches, which are your predominant faiths. They're not a single religion on there in the last 10 years has not had an incident. So every church of every denomination has had some type of incident. That's very important to know. Nobody is exempt. 158 were other triggers for the incident, and that goes all sorts to familial problems, to business transactions and things like that that are outside of personal conflict. So some of these are pretty alarming to me that we have 1,281 people dying in our churches and over the course of 15 years, and we really haven't heard about it, have we? Maybe a couple of the big active shooter scenarios. Let's break down another mindset that we have to have here. If you guys can see the chart, if not, I'll explain it to you. 762 of those 1,200, so well over half, involve firearms as the means to accomplish death. Next to that would be cutting instruments. That's primarily knives, but it can include broken glass, things like that, anything that can slice and dice. After that is automobiles, 72. Again, these are caused by humans, not an automobile accident. We're talking about like running people over and crashing your doors type stuff with automobiles. 68 were 68 were automobiles, 72 were explosives. 72 deaths caused by explosives. Molotov cocktails, pipe bombs, things like that. Pretty interesting to me. And then other, which includes beating, bludgeoning people to death, pushing them to where they fall, things like that. It's 218, and that's an inclusive category. So that's how it's split down. So again, look at this chart. What do we need to protect ourselves from? Firearms and knives, right? That makes it well over 970 of the 1,200. So that's a big deal. Here's the 2014 review of some of the FBI statistics. Just in 2014, there were 176 deadly force incidents. Now, they define this a couple of different ways by the FBI. 176 deadly force incidents means deadly force was used, but deadly force did not result in death. So I shot somebody, but they made it. The hospital saved them. Does that make sense? As the difference as FBI reports them as compared to Carl Chin. So 74 were considered violent. That's the second highest in history. 2014 was the second highest violent deadly force incidents in churches. 52 of those incidents, 52 of those deaths were innocents, and 22 were the perpetrators. So that includes your active shooters, where they unfortunately have caused all that harm, either committing suicide on the premises, law enforcement, or concealed member taking care of the incident. 11 of those were children under the age of 18 years old. Kids. 18% of these deaths, as reported by the FBI, 18 were domestic. Is that something that we're thinking about every day? I'll say 27% were those robberies. Again, are you protecting yourself? Somebody walking up to you with the means to kill you and saying, give me your stuff. And I'll tell you right out front, it's just stuff, give it to them. But we never know their mindset. 2015, without breaking it down, they tied the all-time high of 76 deaths in churches. And the breakdowns, as far as percentages, are still being worked out. The FBI is, my boss over here knows, is not the fastest in getting their statistics out. But they're released in 2015. So 2015 had a total of 248 deadly force incidents. Look at 2014 at the very top. 176 times deadly force was used in churches. Last year, 248. I'm kind of scared to see what 216 is going to reveal. All right, so the FBI reports in 2009. I have no idea why the most updated statistic for the FBI in this specific category is 2009. The rest of it was 2014 and 15, as you just saw. But I updated these 2 weeks ago. In 2008, there were 24,400 church crimes. In 2009, there were 23,547 church crimes. This is just churches and their locations. These are not deaths. So we have removed the deadly force incidents, and I'm just going to round up for you folks, 24,000 crimes committing in churches across America. Now here's a real fun fact for you. Churches are the second least likely victim to report a crime against themselves. The first is being a sexual assault victim. The second least likely person to report a crime is a church. For example, there's a church right here in Paducah that had two could be categorized hate crimes committed against them within a 3-month period. They reported none, 0 of those 2 crimes, despite urging from leadership in government in the area. In 2009, churches accrued, look at that number, $20 million in damages through the crimes. That's criminal mischief to property, that's thefts, that's all kinds of things. That's a big number. So now we've taken it down from personal protection all the way to what's it costing us not to report these crimes, not to protect ourselves. Folks, it can happen here. All right, these are just the reported and documented incidents. I just told you churches don't like reporting crimes. Just imagine what the real number is. Just imagine what the real number is. Churches must break the mindset, again, of it couldn't happen here, but we have to prepare for a variety of incidents to take place. We need to look out for one another, and we need to have an avenue for sharing information. That's why we're here today. Of all victims, churches are the second least likely to report crimes. I'm echoing things on purpose because I want them to stick. All right, here are some of my sources. In fact, the only 3 sources I use in this small one. Carl Chin, Church Security Statistics. If you just Google his name, you'll get it. One of the church's websites that really reports its statistics clearly is manageyourchurch.com, and that also has other people's statistics other than Carl Chin's, but if you want more plus Carl, go to the one in the middle, and if you just Google FBI Uniform Crime Statistics, you'll get whatever you want. And you can look at places of worship under FBI Uniform Crime Statistics. I'm going to pass the torch over, and what we're going to do, again, we'll save questions for the end, but Chuck Jordan's going to come up and he's going to describe a little bit of how we're going to connect and how we're going to track and do these things.
I have a couple things that I just wanted to share, and it's not going to be right as the paper is going to show this morning. I asked a question this morning, how many thought that no one could ever come in their church and do anything, any kind of harm? And it's obvious by you sitting here that you believe that somebody could come in and do harm to your congregation. So with that thought in mind, several weeks ago, Chuck Terry, who was sitting back there in the back, called me and said, we really need to put together some type of a security association for our local churches. So that's where this kind of all came from, to start talking about security. Every church represented in here probably takes up an offering, right? There are people, I don't know that it's happened here in Paducah, but it has happened where the churches were robbed during offering collection. So there's a lot of things that Ryan talked about. Did you notice the word domestic? Domestic violence. Every person sitting in here has got a congregation that somebody has gone through a divorce or something's not just exactly right, and that's where a lot of problems come from, right within our own churches. I don't want to scare you with this big stack of stuff. But this is a rambling of writing. I'll do this so that you can see. Now that was left, we've received 3 of these over a period of years. Somebody took the time to write all of this information down and put it on a windshield of our car or laid it at the door of our church. So there are people out there that don't think just like you and I. And I have kept, over a period of time, a lot of different letters and a lot of different things that's come through our church that we consider to be some type of a threat. It's not normal. And why do I keep that? As a reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. As Fletcher Schrock mentioned, being prepared, it's too late to get prepared once something takes place. So that's why we're talking about this security association to put together, us not telling you what to put together, but offering something that we can all share with and we can all maintain a way of contacting one another. One of the things that we need, when you signed in, we got your phone number. I don't know if we got an email address. Wayne says yes. But what happens during the church service? That's when something takes place. So who are we going to call in the middle of your church service? Who's going to be there to answer the phone in the office? Or you've got your phone in your pocket or turned off because of church service. We need a way to contact Washington Street and Washington Street call Olivet Baptist Church. We got to have some type of a network. Now we have what's called Charity Tracker. Now we have an axe opening down here this morning where we give away clothes and furniture and food and all that stuff. We have a way to know that if someone comes to our church on Monday morning wanting something, did they just leave Lone Oak Church? We have a way to know that. But we don't have a way to know that you just got a stack of this stuff laid at your doorstep and you feel threatened. We don't have a way to know that unless you call and let somebody know. So that's one of the things we're trying to establish, is a way to contact one another. It takes money to have a security program. If you've bought a radio lately, they don't give them away. I encourage you to look at your budget and add a radio this year, a radio next year. Put a camera in. Talk to your pastor and your deacons and elders, whatever, about lighting around your church. I'm probably getting into things that Jared's going to talk about, but no thief likes lights. And on a parking lot, when this time of the year, when it's getting dark early and people are going to their cars, and you just come out of a great worship service and you're not thinking about somebody knocking you in the head or robbing you, but it happens. So we want to put together a way to track what's going on. Just like Ryan said, there were crimes committed that nobody reported. How are we going to protect one another if we don't know what's being done to our churches? And so we want to know that information, and we're going to start from this meeting forward. Now, we've had several meetings in the past where we got a lot of these names, but we've got to have a way to get in touch with one another during a church service and say, this just happened, and in case they come to your church, how to get in touch with you. Now here at our church, I'll give you a real brief how we got involved in church security. And it was a very, very sad situation. We actually started over on 10th Street at Bible Baptist. However, when we got over here, as you remember, there were 3 girls killed at Heath High School shooting. We were thrown into church security when we didn't want to be, because we had national media, we had people from all over the state and the United States coming here. So we had to learn about security pretty quick. And from that, we have been fortunate enough to have a congregation now that expects security. At first, they didn't care much about it. Thought we were the men with earpieces and in blue suits and acting silly. But now they expect it and they welcome it. So, little badges. There's all types of things that we can share with one another to let people know in your church that, hey, this guy's got something around his neck. What does it say? Church security. We call ours special services. It's a softer tone. Plus, we change flats, clean bathrooms, and find lost parents when their children know where they are. So there's a lot of things to do other than just security. And if you want the support of your church, that's a great way to get it, is to be there when the doors open. We're not just here on Sunday morning. We're not just here on Sunday night. We're not just here on Wednesday night. We're here for all types of events. We got Halloween coming up, Fall Fest on this parking lot. Thousands of kids will come through here to get candy. We don't want somebody driving off this lot with a kid in their car that don't belong to them. So our first line of defense is on our parking lot. We got a roaming people out there on the parking lot looking for things that just don't look and feel right. Our next line of defense is at our welcome center, where we got people that's out there working in the foyer that's looking at people, greeting them, but at the same time, does that look odd? Then our ushers and our greeters at the doors, they've got a part in this too. They have got to be on their toes saying, what's odd in my area of responsibility this morning? Lots of help, lots of eyes communicating to one another. So Ryan alluded to some scripture that we're commanded to protect one another. Matthew 10:16 says, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. We have an obligation. The core thing about our church is ministry. Our pastor needs to be able to worship and bring worship to our congregation without fear of somebody coming through the back door. Right here on I-24, we lock doors down. We try to funnel everything to the front once it starts, especially of an evening. We want to watch because it's easy to park a car out here on I-24, do something, and get back and leave. So it's one of these things that we're in constant. We have a security meeting once a month, and we try to go over what took place last month, what's coming up this month, what incidents, how could we have done better at what we're doing. We've got a gentleman that's got a firing range. We go out to the firing range. We've got 30 minutes designated for this coming security meeting for just hands-on techniques. Rather than have to shoot somebody, maybe we can just pick them up by the ear and lead them out, you know. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do things within our congregation. So this hasn't been mentioned in all the stuff that's been medical. We're fortunate enough here at this church to have several people that are qualified in medical field. If you've got anybody in your church that's qualified for medical, to make sure that they're on standby. It's as important as your security, having somebody to take care of medical issues. Ask for volunteers. Your volunteer needs to be somebody that you know. Ryan said to make sure that you know the background of these people. Fletcher mentioned that. Know the background. Here, there's nobody on our team that we haven't looked at for a long, long time. We know their temperament. We know something about them. So you don't want a hothead, somebody that's going to go around the church blabbing who's having marital problems, because that's the first thing that's going to ruin your security team, is gossip. So picking your team is very important. So I'm going to stop at this point and give it to Jared. And
there we go. Well, I hope this has been good for everybody thus far. I'm batting cleanup here and won't be too long, but just a brief introduction for me. I'm an insurance agent. I am a church insurance guy. We write somewhere around 300 churches in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Illinois, and several of your churches are clients of ours. I was asked to get involved because church security is a common liability issue that we deal with from an insurance perspective. So when you start providing security and having the possibility of the event where, like Fletcher described, you have a civil suit as a result of a security team member acting in good faith to protect a church or church members or individuals, where you run the risk of them getting sued both individually and the church being sued for those activities. Your insurance company is an incredible partner in that exposure, and if they're not capable of dealing with that exposure, then it's a challenge, and it's not something you want to find out about after that kind of loss happens or that kind of event happened. You want to find out about it and know in advance that your company's on board with that. So in the back, we wrote these. I'm with American Church Group of Kentucky. In January, we changed our name from Bradshaw and Will, which is a longtime independent agency, for our church business. So we've got a security brochure in the back. We've got a whole bunch of them. If you want one, you can grab it on the way out. If you're here, most of you all have already done some of this. But it's 7 steps every church should take to prepare for a security crisis. And I'm going to touch on a couple of these as I go through this. This is really for what we try to do, not specifics, not getting down to lighting the parking lot or where to put cameras, but really from a high level, what do we need to be aware of as a congregation for church security teams from the perspective of liability and worst case scenario, we get sued for something that's happened. And as I look through these steps, I'm going to hit them fast, but the one I really want to talk about is concealed carry. Recognizing the need for a plan is number one, and Ryan did a great job of dealing with that. Next step would be controlling access to your building during worship and activities. That's a logical piece, and most churches in some form or fashion are controlling access to their building.
Would it be helpful for them to have this?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to, that'd be great. Absolutely. These will be going around. Again, I'm just going to hit some of these quickly and the points on these quickly, and then I'll really focus in, and if there's questions on different areas, we've got that. There's a box under the table with a whole bunch more of them back there, by the way. Yeah. Okay. So limiting access is a logical thing. In most cases, churches, at minimum, once they think about the issue of security, they've started having ushers lock building doors during worship, and it's an easy, logical step. Number 3 would be creating an emergency response plan, and this is where you get into violence, medical emergencies, weather, if you have to do a lockdown or an evacuation. These are all areas where we'd encourage you to consider that and the elements of that. And again, I'm going to go through fast and skip some of these because I want to spend most of my time on the concealed carry piece. Number 4, creating a team of qualified members. And as y'all are getting those and kind of getting through, I'm on page 5 right now, just so you know, number 4. When you're talking about who needs to serve on the team, both Chuck and Fletcher have touched on the idea of a background check, knowing who they are. These are all incredibly important. Most of you or some of you here probably have law enforcement or military background. That seems to be a great place to start for somebody who's serving or at least leading the security team. But those are all great resources, and there's some details for that. Number 5 is very important. This is page 6. Train your security team on the appropriate levels of response. Some churches, depending on what their denomination is and their background and the leadership's appetite for defense, some churches are not going to be willing to arm a security team with deadly force. And that's just the reality. And some of you all here may be at a church like that. The key here is that you make a decision. From the church leadership makes a decision that everybody's aware of on what level of resistance and what level of response you're prepared to deal with. And so if I actually at the church where I attend, Benton Church of Christ in Benton, we had Ryan come in to train, and we had one of our elders there who was very much not interested in having an armed security team, and then we had one of the security team members there open carrying to the meeting and the training. You had some, weren't really on the same page with what leadership wanted from the level of response and how to deal with level of resistance. But you also saw the stats where 75% of the events were either firearm or knife related. So how are you going to deal with that? And that's a decision you have to look at, looking at the facts and making sure your leadership's on board with that. But these are very important. Some of the manufacturers for, I used to call them non-lethal, but I've been instructed to call them less lethal. When you think about mace or tasers, the training requirements from the manufacturers sometimes can be involved and challenging, and it may be easier to carry deadly force and use concealed carry firearms than it is to have a church security team trained for those types of response. So something to think about and look at when you look at that page on number 5 and page 6. If we jump to the next one, this is really where I want to spend some time. Kentucky and most, now Illinois is on board with this too, with concealed carry laws, Tennessee for sure. If you're a building if you're a business and you have people come into your facility, and a church would be considered this type of organization, if you don't post do not carry signs, and the following scenario happens, you have the preacher or the pastor preaching and somebody comes in the back door with a gun, and the pastor says, "Stop that guy, he has a gun." Legally, he just deputized everybody in the room. And so when you look at members who are carrying, that are part of the security team, who have trained, who have firearms and are going to use firearms to respond to that individual in the back, versus somebody who's gotten his concealed carry license, barely passed the shooting part of that, and has carried a gun every day without shooting it for the last 5 years, and they pull a firearm and they all turn to try to address respond to the threat in the back. If innocent people are shot in that process, legally, the church can be held liable for the actions of those who are carrying. So what you need to be aware of, and when I throw out here this posting do not carry signs, first off, I'm not a lawyer, so let me say that very clearly, but in Kentucky, if you haven't posted those signs, you can be held liable for the actions of people who carry on your premises. And the only way to prevent that would be to post the signs. So one of the discussions and one of the education points we want to have with anybody that's doing security in a church is to say, hey, we're not wanting you to say, come shoot us up, we're a target, which is what a lot of people are hesitant on. But be aware that if you don't post the signs, you can be held liable for the church. The church can be held liable for the actions of people who are carrying concealed on premises. Our response to this would be to say, hey, number one, set up a security team and arm them. Number two, take the time and effort to train that team. And then number three, post the do not carry signs along with some notice that says there's a security team on premises. And at that point, you're funneling people who want to carry and who the church is willing to provide liability insurance to into the security team. You're getting them trained. And then those who aren't willing to be trained or that you're not comfortable with being on the security team, if they respond, it's on them personally, and it's not going to be on the church from a liability standpoint at that point. So there's definitely some changes. I've had this conversation with a lot of churches, and the church says, you know what, that's great, we understand the risk, we're not willing to post signs, and that's fine. From our standpoint, we want you to be aware of the risk, and that's our role in the risk advising process. The last piece of this is liability insurance, and this is a big deal. This is page 8, and this is number 7 on the 7 steps. If a volunteer serves on a church security team and the liability insurance does not address this security team volunteer exposure specifically, if a volunteer does what Fletcher described in his first scenario, they use deadly force in good faith trying to protect somebody, and they get sued and the church gets sued, the volunteer's homeowner's policy will respond first if they have it, and the church liability for a volunteer will respond second. So you have an issue from an insurance standpoint. If you don't have some form of security team endorsement on the general liability for the church's insurance, then the security team members who aren't employees, the volunteers, are going to have to go to their homeowner's policy for protection first. And then after that is expired, the church insurance will sit on top of that on an excess or secondary basis. This is a huge deal, and most people are not aware of it. And it's something from an education standpoint we want to make sure everybody's aware of. There are insurance issues with volunteer security teams, and you need to have an insurance company that understands that and that's on board with helping out with that.
To his family.
All right.
One of the things that you want to prepare for, if you want to write down in your notebooks, write down in the pamphlets that you have handed out, there are 3 main areas of consideration as far as training and formation of any type of safety or security team, and they've all been touched on at this point. One, of course, is the big one that everybody thinks of and is probably here for, is security. You need actual security personnel, security training, security resources, and you need those things. That goes all the way from radios to, if you decide to do any type of less lethal like pepper spray, things like that. People are probably going to be furnishing their own firearms and ammunition if you choose to go the route of arming security forces, but you need the security, and that's a ring that I consider. The next one is going to be medical, and we've touched on that as well. Medical personnel. So setting up a security or a safety team is not just, like Chuck said, a bunch of guys in blue suits with earpieces. You need medical personnel as well, and you need to train the medical personnel, not necessarily how to do their medical thing. They have that training. They're anywhere from as low as CPA and first aid certified all the way up to nurses, ER doctors, surgeons, things like that. We have brain surgeons on safety teams as medical responders. They're going to be able to handle everything from a stroke or seizure in the middle of a service all the way to somebody getting injured and trauma on scene. So that's very important as well, and that's another ring of your team consideration. But the one that a lot of people forget is one of the main reasons that you're here today is the administrative. And you need an administrative ring. So you have security, medical, and administrative. And if you're going to put these in rings, all the rings are going to have their own responsibilities, their own areas that they need to cover. The administrative covers insurance, policy writing, documentation, background checks, things of that nature. So if you have an incident, we have a form at our church, it's just one page. If something happens, if somebody faints in service, and we require 2 medical people to come over and fan them off, put a towel on their head, and get them back on their feet. We fill out a little incident, date, time, name, responders, what happened. Something that simple, so we can come back and when an insurance company says, well, hey, they had a fall, they're blaming you for a bump in the carpet, we got it documented. So a lot of protection, and it also helps us debrief each other. Hey, we had like 5 people show up, everybody was smothering this person, how do we limit it down to just 2 people? And we can correct our actions from there. The administrative also goes to, I call them EAPs, emergency action plans, emergency response plans, however you want to call them. I really want you to show me hands here. Show me hands. This is not a rhetorical question. I would like a raised hand response. When's the last time your church had a fire drill? Tornado drill. All right. Bomb drill. Physical violence drill. Medical response drill. Active shooter drill. Okay, so we obviously have a gap, right? When's the last time the children in school had a fire drill? Say within the last month, right? They do mandatory, I think it's 2 a year. When's the last time the children in school had a tornado drill? Probably within the last month. So they're doing these things. When do you think the faculty had a bomb drill? They've already had one. Do these schools do active shooter drills? Yes. Do they respond to resistance drills? Yes. So our schools are doing this. A lot of our corporations are doing this. But our churches, which are classified nationally as soft targets, okay? So we need to, unfortunately, harden ourselves is the terminology that is being used. And that's just protecting ourselves. Security, medical, and administrative. You're going to have different people in different categories that are going to be able to carry out the different tasks. You got hands, feet, eyes, and nose. We're all different parts of the body. We just need to use them the right way. We don't want a foot doing our talking, okay? And so we're going to have these 3 rings that are going to overlap around a central figure or figures, which should be a person in church leadership that has the ability to make changes physically to the church, make changes to the personnel that respond, to make purchases of AEDs and backboards and neck braces and oxygen valves and first aid kits, people that have that authority. So that's another thing that you really need to take home here is that this is very expansive. It feels very overwhelming at first. But what's really nice is you have resources all around. If you want to Google or Bing or whatever Yahoo search engine that you may use, if you want to rely on other churches that already have these things set up, that's why we're here today. So you can start networking. This email group is going to be for that purpose. Now, something that I forgot to mention on the very first end of this email group, like we said, is not a gossip group. All right, this is not a, well, hey, Johnny, they're having some issues. You may want to watch out for Johnny because, I heard him and Susie arguing next to the bathrooms. No, this is a, hey, we just got hit by a scam. Everyone beware. They're driving a, white Toyota pickup truck, and they just scammed our church. Hey, we just had 2 juveniles captured on our camera spray painting our back parking lot. You guys beware that there's juveniles in this area spray painting stuff. This is a fact-based email sharing group so that we can all be more alert, we can all be more focused on helping each other out.